Hey guys, my name is Batimio, and today I decided to do something a little bit different in Battlefield 4. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but at least on PC, I'm not sure this is something that you can do on consoles, but at least on PC, you have the ability to completely turn off your UI, and hopefully that is very apparent, what you guys are seeing right in front of you. There is nothing on my screen. I'm not notified when I'm killing someone, I'm not notified who I'm shooting at, I don't get any hit markers, no minimap, no nothing. And this is actually something that I would do back in Battlefield 3. I would play it on a normal server, so I couldn't kill my teammates. That was something I was worried about. And I would play like on something like Strike at Karkin, go around, and it was an incredibly immersive experience. But for Battlefield 4, I never gave it a go, and let alone I've never tried it out in hardcore mode. But today I was like, I guess feeling a little bit lucky. I was feeling a little bit adventurous, and so what you guys are seeing right now is I have completely turned off my UI and I'm playing in hardcore mode. And so essentially what I've created is a hyper-realistic game mode for Battlefield 4 that I'm only playing in. Like, sure, my enemies and my teammates, they also are playing, on the same server as I, so they can't see their minimap. They still die a lot faster because this is hardcore, but I'm the only one, or I'm assuming I'm the only one that has completely shut off my UI and gone for the ultra-realistic route. And while it did take some time getting used to it, like the first couple of rounds were a struggle, once I finally started getting acclimated to it, once I slowly started to get used to this play style, this was one of the most immersive things that I've done in the game, and honestly, it was an absolute blast. Like, my heart was pounding pretty much throughout my playtime. And so one of the biggest things that I had to overcome with this was simply identifying who was a teammate and who was an enemy. DICE has always done a good job at creating uniforms and creating factions that look very unique. Like, if you're playing as the Chinese faction, they all look very similar. Like, they all have their very unique theme to them. And if you're going against someone who's playing as the Russia faction, you basically just look for the people that have a little bit darker of a uniform. You look for more clunky stuff, like the support, they're wearing those gigantic helmets, and that gives you a pretty good indication who was a teammate and who was an enemy. And so honestly, the first thing that I had to just figure out were these distinctions between the characters. Like, normally when you play the game, like, sure, you've probably noticed that the recons for the US look a certain way, but usually you don't have to take advantage of that information. Usually you notice that there is a blue triangle over their head and you know that's an ally. But if you're running around without an UI and you don't have that information at your fingertips, you basically just have to use the information that DICE has given you. And so it's good that DICE has made this distinction. If there wasn't uniforms that were different between all the factions, this would literally be impossible. Like, I would shoot pretty much every ally or every teammate on my team, and I would probably get kicked from the servers. And while it did take some time getting used to it, like, there were some moments that you guys are gonna see throughout today's video. Like, I will go on a rampage where I'll kill a bunch of enemies, but then a teammate will round the corner, I'll freak the hell out, kill him really quickly, and then realize, oh my god, I just killed an ally, and then quickly revive him. And that did happen every once in a while. And so that really was the biggest thing that I had to overcome. And because of this, I mainly had to stick with the higher optics. I was using the L85. I felt like the L85 is an all-around amazing weapon, and because I'm, at a huge disadvantage, I felt like this was a solid weapon to use, but I also needed to use the higher optics. I was using the 4x scope because it actually allowed me to identify what I was shooting at. Like, normally, I would run around with the RDS. I find that the RDS in this game are probably the best optics right now, but there are a lot of moments when I just simply had no idea what I was shooting at. Like, if the target was a good 40 meters away, it was pretty much a flip of the coin if I was using the red dot sight, if that was a teammate or an enemy. And so there was a lot of moments when I was somewhat successful. I was going on some pretty fun kill streaks, but I was noticing that I was killing way too many teammates when I was using the red dot sight, and so I basically was forced to switch on over to the ACOG scope and stuff like that. The good thing about it, though, is that it actually made it easier for me to identify when I actually killed an enemy. Because it doesn't showcase the 100 points when I take someone out on hardcore, there's nothing on my screen. There were some moments when I wouldn't know if I actually killed my enemy, but because I had that higher optic, I was zoomed in a little bit more, I could see that they would fall, I would notice that they would ragdoll down on the ground, and if I was normally just using the RDS, there would have been some circumstances where I've been like, I don't know if I took them out, that I may have to sit here for a little bit longer to identify if that was the case, but because I was using the higher optics, it did make it a little bit easier. But what made this so much fun and just incredibly satisfying and immersive, I mean, look at how cool this is. Like, this is so much fun and this is so cool to watch, is the information that DICE gives you at your fingertips. Normally when you're running around, even on hardcore, but mainly on normal servers, you're staring at your minimap throughout the entire match. Like if you hear some gunfire, you look on over at your minimap. You see some people spotted, you're trying to figure out where they are on your minimap. Like there is so much information that DICE gives you for the UI, but if you don't have that information at your fingertips, you have to rely on what's happening around you. Like if I hear gunfire off to my right, I'm gonna go investigate what was going on over there. Did my teammate just take out an enemy? Do I notice that some teammates are firing off to some objects off in the distance? That's probably where the front line of the enemy team is. There's all this information at your disposal that you have access to when you normally play Battlefield, but because you're always just staring at your minimap, you're always looking for the spot, you know, enemies spotted, you don't notice it as much. And so the fact that I had to rely on that just made it incredibly immersive. And while I realize that there are more hardcore games out there, if you play something like Insurgency, you get shot in the dome piece with pretty much any weapon at any distance, you're gonna be down on the ground. Like that game is incredibly hardcore. It still gets that type of immersive gameplay, that extremely hardcore realism, and it was just made for incredibly satisfying gameplay. But during my playtime, one of the things that I was thinking of is how cool would it be if DICE created a game mode with this type of gameplay in mind. So you'd have your normal servers, your hardcore, and then hyper hardcore or ultra realism. They can figure out the name for it. But it would be something like this, where maybe it would have a couple indicators. Maybe it would just show you what objectives are taken by the enemy, something like Insurgency. But that is it. You don't get notified when you kill an enemy. You don't get spotting bonus. There's no minimap, none of that. Just a very cinematic, very realistic gameplay. And I think a lot of people would enjoy that. Like, people love the immersion for Battlefield. Like, the Battlefield franchise has always been known for their top-of-the-line graphics, but they've never had a hyper-realistic game mode like this. And honestly, what would solve the problem or make this accessible is if DICE actually had modding tools for Battlefield 4. I know that it's not going to happen. They've already come out and said that apparently the Frostbite engine is way too complicated, but if they did have modding tools, I'm sure that there'd be a bunch of these servers popping up all over the place. Like, I know that this is something that people desire. They want to have this incredibly immersive gameplay, and if modding tools were available, I have a suspicion that many people would hop on board and they would get a kick out of this type of play style. And so personally, I had an absolute blast with this play style. Going around, getting kill streaks, picking up the enemy's weapons, giving them a taste of their own medicine with their bolt-action rifles, killing people left and right without a UI. It was cinematic, it was immersive, and it was one of the coolest things that I've done in Battlefield 4 in quite some time. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought of this gameplay. Is this something that you would like to see in Battlefield 4? Would you love to have a hyper-realistic game mode? Would you be someone that would be interested in that? Let me know down below. But until tomorrow, have a good one, and take it easy.